Have you ever thought that just a small snack before bed could be the reason your health is declining day by day, even leading to serious consequences? Many older adults still keep the same evening eating habits they had when they were younger. A hearty dinner, a bit of dessert, or sometimes a small glass of wine to help them sleep better. These seemingly harmless things can silently put pressure on your heart, brain, liver, and even your nervous system when your body is supposed to be resting. As we reach our 60s, our bodies no longer function as quickly and robustly as when we were younger. Digestion slows down, blood pressure becomes more variable, and sleep becomes lighter and more prone to disruption. This means that what you eat before bed, whether it's a bowl of soup, a piece of meat, or a small pastry, can directly affect your heart health, memory, and your body's ability to recover overnight. Let me share with you a true story. A 72-year-old man, completely healthy with no history of heart disease, suddenly passed away while sleeping, just after a late dinner of fatty grilled meat. When doctors examined him, they found signs of undiagnosed arrhythmia, along with sleep apnea that had gone unnoticed. Combined with a heavy meal before bed, his heart simply couldn't handle it. Of course, this is a rare case, but the risk is very real, especially as our bodies become more sensitive over the years. The key is not to fear, but to understand what your body needs and avoid anything that forces it to work hard during the night. In today's video, I'll share with you 5 common foods that can be very dangerous if eaten before bed. You might be eating them every night without realizing they're silently ruining your sleep, waking you up at 2 or 3 a.m., or leaving you feeling tired and dizzy every morning. Stick around till the end, because this isn't just about what to avoid, but how to keep your body healthy, your mind sharp, and your spirit optimistic, to live long, live well, and live independently for as long as possible. And if you're between the ages of 60 and 85, then these tips could be the most important advice you've heard all year. It was a cool autumn evening, the kind that invites warm gatherings and simple pleasures. Robert, 72 years old, was in good spirits. His children and grandchildren had come over for dinner, and the backyard was filled with laughter, the smell of grilled meat, and the soft rustle of leaves. The air carried that familiar comfort of family and tradition. For Robert, a hearty barbecue dinner was a symbol of joy: steak, ribs, maybe a sausage or two. It was the kind of meal he had enjoyed all his life, something that reminded him of summer holidays, backyard cookouts, and his younger days when health was never a second thought. That night, after the dishes were cleared and the house had gone quiet, Robert went to bed feeling full and satisfied. But he never woke up. The next morning his wife found him unresponsive. At first it seemed like a peaceful passing, no signs of struggle, no cries in the night. But the truth that unfolded later painted a more complex picture. Robert had suffered a silent arrhythmia in his sleep, a disruption in his heart's rhythm that became fatal. It was a tragedy that no one saw coming. He had no known history of heart problems, but what the doctors found shocked everyone. The combination of a heavy, fatty meal and undiagnosed sleep apnea had quietly placed unbearable strain on his heart during the night. Robert's story is not meant to scare you. It's meant to wake you up. Not every night ends in loss, but many nights end with subtle harm we don't see or feel right away. And when you're over 60, even the things that once felt harmless, like a rich dinner or a late-night indulgence, can now become too much for your body to manage while it's trying to rest and recover. Heavy red meat, particularly cuts like steak, ribs, or roast, is slow to digest. It's high in saturated fat and dense in protein, both of which require significant time and energy to break down. For younger people, this isn't usually a problem, but for older adults, digestion naturally slows with age. The stomach doesn't empty as quickly, enzyme production decreases, and the whole digestive process becomes more demanding. What that means is simple. While you lie in bed hoping for deep, restorative sleep, your body is working overtime to break down what you ate hours ago. That internal labor keeps your system from fully entering the deep stages of sleep, the kind that repair cells, regulate blood pressure, and balance your hormones. Instead, you might find yourself tossing and turning, waking up gasping, or dealing with restless legs. And if you have any underlying conditions, like sleep apnea or high blood pressure, the risks multiply. The heart, instead of resting, is responding to a metabolic load that doesn't belong at that hour. Multiple studies have found that older adults who consume heavy animal proteins late at night are more likely to experience disrupted sleep, elevated nighttime heart rates, and higher rates of nocturnal blood pressure spikes. These may sound minor, but over time they wear the body down. What's worse is that they're often dismissed, brushed off as just getting older, when in fact they're signals that something is being asked of the body that it can no longer give without consequence. But this isn't about removing joy from your life. It's about shifting the timing. You can still enjoy the foods you love, just not at the cost of your sleep and well-being. If you enjoy red meat, make it a lunchtime pleasure. Give your body the hours it needs to fully digest before you go to bed. In the evening, opt for foods that are gentler on your system. A boiled egg, a bit of yogurt, a bowl of warm lentil soup. When you begin making these small changes, something surprising happens. You start sleeping better. You wake up lighter, clearer, more energized. You feel less weighed down physically and mentally. And over time, that feeling becomes your new normal. Robert's story is a heartbreaking one, but it holds a gentle lesson. As we age, the way we treat our bodies before we sleep matters more than ever. And with just a little awareness, we can give ourselves the gift of deeper rest, safer nights and brighter mornings. One meal, one evening, one choice at a time. It started as a small comfort, something sweet at the end of a long day. For Carol, 74 years old, dessert wasn't just a habit. It was a ritual. Every night after dinner, she would reach into the cabinet for a piece of her favorite chocolate fudge. Soft, rich, and wrapped in memories of her younger years, that tiny indulgence felt like a reward. It was her quiet moment, her way of saying, "You made it through another day." She never imagined that something so small could be the root of her restless nights and weary mornings. At first it was little things. She began waking up more frequently around 2 or 3 in the morning. There were nights she'd break into a light sweat for no reason. Other times she'd wake needing to use the bathroom, even though she hadn't had much to drink. Her dreams became vivid, almost too real, some joyful, others strange. Then came the tingling in her legs. It wasn't painful, but it kept her awake, as if her body couldn't find stillness. Her energy in the morning began to fade. The bright, peaceful feeling she once had with the sunrise was replaced by grogginess, an ache in her head, and a weight behind her eyes. She tried adjusting her bedtime. She tried drinking less water. She blamed the weather, her medications, her age, but nothing helped. It wasn't until a routine visit to her doctor that the truth came into view. After sharing her symptoms, her doctor gently asked, "What are your evenings like?" When she mentioned her nightly fudge, he paused. "That small amount of sugar," he said, "might not seem like much, but at your age it can quietly disrupt the entire rhythm of your night." Carol was surprised. It was just a piece of chocolate. But what she hadn't known was that as we age, our bodies become far more sensitive to sugar. The pancreas doesn't regulate insulin like it used to. Blood sugar spikes faster and crashes harder. That crash, often happening hours after the sweet treat, triggers a cascade of reactions. Night sweats, increased urination, heart rate changes, even nerve sensitivity. The sympathetic nervous system, which should be quiet and calm at night, gets activated, waking the body when it should be resting. Carol decided to try something simple. No more sweets after dinner. The first few nights were hard. The habit was deeply ingrained, not just physically but emotionally. She missed the comfort, the small reward. But by the end of the first week, she noticed something. Her sleep grew deeper. She stopped waking up drenched or anxious. The tingling in her legs faded, and most important of all, she woke up with clarity, with lightness. It felt like her body was finally sleeping again, not just lying still, but truly healing. Sugar is not the villain. It's the timing that matters. The older we get, the more important it becomes to protect our nights. When we eat sweets late in the day, we set our bodies on a roller coaster of highs and lows that continues even as we close our eyes. But when we choose differently, when we reserve those pleasures for earlier in the day, we give our bodies A better chance to restore, to reset, to breathe. If the evenings feel empty without something sweet, try a cup of chamomile tea with a pinch of cinnamon. Try a few slices of banana. These don't just soothe the senses, they support serotonin, the gentle chemical that calms the mind and prepares us for rest. The goal isn't to deprive yourself, it's to reclaim your night, to trade a moment of sweetness for a full night of healing. Carol's journey is one many can relate to, and her quiet transformation is a reminder that small choices, made with care and consistency, can shift the entire quality of your life. Sometimes it's not the grand changes that matter most. It's the one square of fudge you set aside for a clearer mind, for stronger mornings, for the peace that comes when your body is finally at rest. Every night at 10 p.m., like clockwork, Harold would settle into his favorite chair in the living room. The television played softly in the background, usually an old western or a late-night news program, and beside him, on a small wooden tray, was his ritual: a few slices of sharp cheddar, 2 thin rounds of salami, and a glass of water. It wasn't a feast. It wasn't even particularly indulgent, but to Harold 78 it was comfort. It reminded him of simpler times, of evenings shared with his late wife, of the quiet he had come to appreciate in the years since her passing. Never imagined that something so familiar, so ordinary, could be working against him. But over time, Harold began to notice changes. His sleep grew lighter. He would wake with his heart pounding, forehead damp, as though he'd just run a mile in his dreams. Some nights, he lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, feeling restless and slightly anxious without knowing why. The mornings weren't any better. His head felt heavy, his ring finger swollen, his feet oddly puffy. He thought perhaps it was just part of aging, another invisible thread in the fabric of growing older. Then one evening, at a routine community wellness check, a visiting dietitian gave a short talk on nighttime eating habits. She spoke gently, almost conversationally, about how certain foods, particularly aged cheeses and cured meats, contain a compound called tyramine. Tyramine, she explained, stimulates the release of norepinephrine, a hormone that increases blood pressure and alertness. It's the kind of stimulation the body needs in the morning, not at night when it's trying to rest. Harold sat quietly, feeling a slow recognition dawn inside him. His cheddar, his salami, his late-night comfort had, in truth, been keeping his body on edge. That night he went home and skipped his snack. It wasn't easy, breaking a ritual never is, but he was curious to see what might change. Within days, the difference was clear. His sleep became deeper, steadier. The episodes of racing heart slowed. He stopped waking up drenched in sweat or tangled in strange dreams. And the swelling he'd blamed on age? It eased, almost without him realizing. He hadn't just been eating something salty. He'd been unknowingly overloading his body with sodium right before bed. That salt led to water retention, which led to disrupted sleep and unnecessary stress on his heart and kidneys during the hours they were meant to rest. What's more, the fat content in those foods, especially aged cheeses, made digestion slow and demanding. Just like heavy red meat, fatty snacks at night keep the digestive system busy long after lights are out, and when your body is spending the night breaking down food instead of repairing cells and rebalancing hormones, it can't do the work that sleep is meant to do. You wake up tired, foggy, and unsteady, not because you're weak, but because your body was never truly at rest. Harold didn't give up his favorite foods. He simply moved them. Now, he enjoys his cheese and salami with lunch, paired with fruit, or some fresh bread. In the evenings, he chooses something lighter, a small bowl of warm rice, steamed vegetables, or a cup of herbal tea. The ritual is still there, but it no longer robs him of the peace his nights are meant to hold. And maybe that's the quiet wisdom that aging teaches us, not to deny ourselves, but to listen more carefully, to understand that what once served us may now need to be reshaped, gently, with love and respect for the body we live in. When we do, our nights become softer, our mornings steadier, and our days, every precious one of them, fuller than we thought possible. Ruth had always considered herself a healthy woman. At 82, she still took morning walks around her neighborhood, tended to her garden with care, and enjoyed a quiet cup of tea each night before bed. It was a ritual she'd held onto for years, a hearty, warm mug of green tea, sometimes a square of dark chocolate on the side. It felt peaceful, a small pleasure at the end of each day, something gentle to lead her into rest. For a long time, she never thought twice about it. Tea was healthy. Chocolate, in moderation, even had antioxidants. She believed she was doing everything right. But slowly things began to shift. Her sleep, once steady and nourishing, started to feel lighter. She began waking up in the middle of the night, sometimes once, sometimes 2 or 3 times. There were vivid dreams too, strange, elaborate stories that left her breathless when she opened her eyes in the dark. And the mornings, they no longer greeted her with clarity. Instead, she felt foggy, almost disconnected, like she had never truly rested at all. Ruth dismissed it as aging. What else could it be? But deep down, she sensed something was off. When she mentioned her sleep troubles to her granddaughter, who happened to be studying holistic health, the young woman asked gently, "Grandma, what do you usually eat or drink before bed?" Ruth listed her usual routine. Light dinner, tea, a bit of chocolate. That's when the conversation took a turn. Her granddaughter explained, with love and patience, that even foods that seem harmless can have unexpected effects on the aging body. Chocolate, especially dark chocolate, contains not only caffeine but a compound called theobromine. Both of these act as stimulants, increasing heart rate and alertness, things you want in the morning, not when you're trying to fall asleep. And green tea, though often praised for its health benefits, also contains caffeine unless it's labeled specifically as caffeine-free. Ruth was quiet for a moment. She'd never thought of it that way. The things she believed were calming her might have actually been keeping her system awake long after her head hit the pillow. That night, she made a small change. She swapped her green tea for chamomile and set aside the chocolate. The first night felt a little empty without her usual routine, but she gave it a chance. Within a few days, she noticed a difference. The dreams grew softer, more distant. The nighttime awakenings became less frequent. By the end of the week, she slept through the night for the first time in months. And the next morning, she felt grounded again, present, awake, herself. What Ruth discovered, and what so many others are now realizing, is that the older we get, the more carefully we must choose what we invite into our evenings. Our brains, once resilient to stimulants, now respond with greater sensitivity. A small piece of chocolate, a few sips of tea with hidden caffeine, these can delay the onset of sleep by an hour or more, and even reduce deep sleep by up to 20%. That's not just a number. That's memory, immune strength, and emotional balance being quietly diminished night after night. Ruth didn't have to give up her joys. She simply moved them. Now she enjoys her chocolate with lunch, when her body is more equipped to process it. And her tea, a soothing herbal blend that invites rest instead of resisting it. These little adjustments, made not out of fear but out of wisdom, gave her nights back to her, and with each restful night, she began to feel like herself again, not the younger version of her, but the wiser one. The version who knew that small pleasures are most powerful, when they are aligned with the rhythms of a body that has carried her through so much. Every night around 9, Marvin would begin his quiet ritual. The lights in his small home would dim, the radio played softly, usually old jazz tunes, and he would warm a small pot of water on the stove. Into his favorite mug, he poured a splash of honey, a touch of lemon, and just a bit of bourbon. He called it his evening comfort, something he'd been doing for years. To Marvin, 76, this wasn't just a drink. It was warmth, familiarity, a way to soften the edges of the day and ease gently into sleep. And at first, it worked. At least on the surface, he'd feel relaxed, even drowsy, shortly after sipping the warm drink. Sleep came quickly, but over time something began to shift. He noticed he was waking up more often in the middle of the night, sometimes at 2 a.m., sometimes at 3:30. His heart would race. His body felt oddly alert, as if someone had shaken him from rest. And then there were the mornings, grogginess that clung to him for hours, a sense of heaviness in both body and mind, and moments when his footing didn't feel as sure as it once did. At first, Marvin brushed it off. "I'm just getting older," he told himself. But then came a fall, a sudden one. He'd gotten up in the dark to use the bathroom and lost his balance near the hallway. Nothing was broken, but the bruise on his hip and the fear in his eyes told a deeper story. It was after that moment that Marvin decided to talk to his doctor, not about the fall, about the nights, the fog, the fatigue that seemed to linger, like a shadow. As they talked, the doctor asked him about his evenings. Marvin mentioned his nightly drink, and that's when the quiet truth came forward. While alcohol can make us feel sleepy at first, it doesn't allow the body to reach deep, restorative sleep. Instead, it sedates, tricking the brain into believing it's resting while preventing it from entering the stages of sleep that repair memory, balance emotions, and support the immune system. For older adults, this becomes even more pronounced. Natural levels of REM sleep, the part of the night where the brain heals, are already declining. Add alcohol to that, and it can nearly vanish. And more than that, alcohol raises core body temperature and speeds up the heart as it's being metabolized. That's often why people like Marvin find themselves wide awake in the early morning hours, unable to return to sleep. And then there's the danger we often forget: balance. Even small amounts of alcohol impair coordination, especially in the elderly. A midnight trip to the bathroom can become a serious risk. One misstep, one moment of fog, one fall that changes everything. After that visit, Marvin made a quiet decision. He stopped his nightly bourbon. The warmth he missed, he replaced with a caffeine-free ginger tea. He found other ways to wind down: soft music, slow breathing, even a warm bath when his joints ached. Within a week he felt the difference. His sleep became more even. His mornings were no longer clouded by confusion. And perhaps most importantly, he no longer feared getting out of bed in the dark. Marvin didn't change who he was. He didn't abandon comfort. He simply redefined it. He chose to honor the needs of his aging body with the same tenderness he once gave to others. And in return, his nights became peaceful again, not just quiet, but truly restful. His story is a reminder to us all. Sometimes the rituals we hold on to need to evolve, not because we're weaker, but because we've learned to care more deeply for the life we have left to live. As the years go by, our choices begin to carry more weight than our words. What once felt like a harmless snack or a soothing evening drink may now quietly shape the quality of our sleep, our energy, and even our safety. These small routines, innocent as they seem, can slowly wear down a body that's more delicate, more sensitive, and more in need of care than ever before. The foods you reach for before bed are no longer just about satisfying hunger or craving comfort. They're about how deeply you rest, how balanced you feel when you rise, and how long you remain strong, independent, and confident in your own home. Avoiding these 5 common nighttime foods isn't about fear. It's about awareness. It's about giving yourself every quiet advantage to stay sharp, steady, and well. You deserve mornings filled with lightness and energy, not fatigue and fog. You deserve nights that truly restore you, rather than challenge your body while it's trying to heal. And the best part is, these changes don't require anything fancy. No equipment, no strict rules, just a little more attention, a small shift. In your evening habits can lead to deeper sleep, better balance, and a calmer, more grounded version of yourself. If you've stayed with us this far, you've already taken the most important step. You've chosen to listen, to reflect, and to care, not just about living longer, but about living better. That says something powerful about you. It means you're not giving up. You're adapting. You're still learning, still growing. And that kind of strength, the quiet, steady kind, is something most people don't recognize until they've lived it themselves. Thank you for sharing this time with us. If something in this video spoke to you, take a moment to reflect on what you've learned. Maybe share it below. What change will you try? What insight will you carry with you into tonight? Your story matters. Your voice inspires. And your presence here helps us continue creating meaningful content that supports and empowers people in every season of life. If this message touched you, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing it with someone you care about. Until next time, may your evenings be gentle, your sleep be deep, and your mornings be filled with light.